going to go ahead and get started tonight. I've got the chat open, so just to make sure that everybody can hear me okay, if you'd like to really quickly just respond to the chat and just say something like, hey, yeah, I can hear you, or oh my gosh, no, I can't hear a thing. Of course, I guess if you're telling me you can't hear anything, that means you can probably hear everything. But you know what, we're going to go ahead and open this, so if anybody wants to just pop in right quick and let me know that you're hearing me okay, it'd be appreciated. Oh, yep, you can hear me. Excellent. Well, then let's get started. I want to go ahead and go through a couple things first of all, before we get started here. And what I'm going to do is pop up a little slideshow that we made up earlier. So let's talk a little bit about, first of all, I want to introduce you to the new regional directors that we have coming on board this year. We've had some open spots from last year. We got those taken care of. So first of all, on our new regional directors, taking over for Region 4, Divisions B and C, we've got Lynn Miller. He has worked with us for many, many years. And one of the things that Lynn is known for is running a very well-attended regional or invitational tournament each year. So we're very confident that he's going to do a great job for us at regional director. Out of Region 6B, we have Joey Jackson. Now, Joy is very highly recommended by Darla J., who is the director for Region 6C. So we're very looking forward to having her come on board. And lastly, we have Dylan Welker. Dylan is going to be handling everything in Region 7, both B and C. And we're also very happy to have him come on board. And he has really been helping us a lot, especially as Missouri State really stepped up this year to give us a lot of support, which we most definitely appreciate. So with that underway, let's talk a little bit about what I'm sure everybody's here for this year, and that is to learn a little bit about how this season in Science Olympiad is going to work. So first things first, just to kind of give you an idea of the state of Science Olympiad across Missouri and across the nation, we get a little information from the regional or from the national office every year. And as of this week, 28 states are running their state tournament as a mini Science Olympiad, which essentially means those kids are never going to be in a school. They're going to do everything at home. We have 15 states that are running it as a satellite Science Olympiad virtual tournament only. We have a couple states, including one in Minnesota, that have canceled their state tournaments altogether. And at last call, we have 5 states that either haven't decided yet or are going to really try and run an actual in-person tournament. And the ones that are trying to go in person, let's see, we've got Maine, Montana, Idaho, South Dakota, and I think Wyoming are the only ones that have said they think they can do a state tournament. So that pretty much leaves us with us in Missouri. And for us, we're going to be running a satellite Science Olympiad tournament. We're going to do that for all of our regionals, and we're also going to do this for our state tournament as well. And what I want to do tonight is to talk to you a little bit about how a satellite Science Olympiad tournament is going to work. And we'll also let you know what, as coaches, you guys are going to need to do to make sure that your team is prepared for that and that this tournament runs as well as it can for you. As we're going along, I'm going to have the chat wide open the whole time. So if you have any questions whatsoever, please go ahead and send those off to me in the chat. I'll be more than happy to answer them. And the goal is going to be that by the time we get done this evening, any question that you may have is going to be answered. Now, before we go any further along, I just want to pause for a minute and see if anybody had anything they wanted to ask at this point before we talk a little bit about a satellite Science Olympiad tournament is actually going to work. So let's see, don't see any questions coming up. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about satellite Science Olympiad. Now, I went ahead and wrote this out as a PowerPoint. Yeah. Sorry about that. I went ahead and made this up as a PowerPoint for everyone. So if you can kind of follow along with me, we'll see if everything looks okay, and then we can hopefully have all your questions answered. So first things first, as you probably know, we are going to have to do a Satellite Science Olympiad. So not the ideal, but you know what, we're going to make this thing work. So for Satellite Science Olympiad, essentially what that means is that aside from the fact we're using this for everything, understand that we are going to be flexible here in Missouri. If the conditions in the state start to worsen, if it gets to the point where we're having schools actually shut down, then we're prepared to go down to a MySO or a mini science Olympiad where the kids would be competing in their own houses and they wouldn't be coming to the school at all. So we're going to be monitoring that pretty closely. So on the satellite tournament, the way this is going to work is that all of the competitions for the year are going to be held at the home schools for each team. One of the reasons we had to do this is that most of our regional sites are closed right now and they're not letting anybody in. And the last time we checked at Fulton, they have not determined yet if they're going to be able to open second semester for us. So really don't have a lot of options on doing this. One of the things that we are asking each team to do is there is a signed Science Olympiad satellite SO form that you will need to submit to your regional director before the competition. We have these on our website available to download. And essentially what the form is saying is that you guys are authorized to be in your school building, that the district has authorized you to work with students, and that you're authorized to run a Science Olympiad. Now, as for the dates that we're going to be doing our regional and our state tournaments, the state tournaments on the website, we've got about 3 or 4 regionals that have announced their times as well. But one of the things that happened when we had our directors meeting last week and we decided that we needed to go to this format was the question of whether or not we want to try and run all the regionals statewide on the same day as a way to help really conserve some of our resources, because it's harder to find volunteers this year with a lot of campuses closed. So we are looking at this as an option, and we will let you guys know all the regional dates as soon as we have them, definitely by Christmas time. So if you see the date on the website, not 100%, so just be aware of that. We will let you know before Christmas break, however. Now, one of the things that you're going to be doing as a coach, it'll be your responsibility to secure a location at your school for this competition. As a coach, your role is going to be to serve as a event proctor during this satellite tournament for the regionals and state. And we will be having you on the honor system. So essentially, we're going to leave it to you to verify that any event-specific rules are followed, that on situations where it says what type of resources your students are allowed to use, that you verify they are using those and not additional resources that perhaps are not in the rules. So as for the how to play, there's a couple ways that we're going to be delivering the event information to you. One of the ways is the Olympiad website that you've used to register your team initially. There is a national tournament, practice tournament today using that website. We had quite a few Missouri teams that entered that, and we're eager to get some feedback from them as to how that process worked. That might be one option for us. We do have one of our regional directors that has said their college may let them use Canvas to deliver the test that way. Google Forms is another option. We're really doing a lot of work right now trying to figure out what is going to be best. Our Region 4 director, Lynn Miller, is running an invitation tournament in December, I believe. And he's really volunteered to be our guinea pig and try a lot of these formats out. And then once he's run his tournament, he can report back to us, let us know what ways are working the best, and then that's what we can implement statewide. Once we have our format down, then the tests are going to be delivered just like they normally would. Your kids will log onto the computer. The test would be presented to them at a preset time. They will have 50 minutes to complete the exam, and then after that, they'll submit the results, and they will be scored by our directors. So essentially, it is close to an actual regional experience as we can get. What we'll do is we'll have the teams working on the same test at the same time. So this is kind of like a security issue where we don't have a test that's going to be floating around out there for hours on end because we don't have a control over this environment. The regionals will be giving you a schedule, just like they would in a traditional tournament. Some regional directors in the past have let you sign up for what times you want to run your events. Others have said, here's when the event's going to run. I don't see anything changing in that. So that should be just like always, where you'll have a regional schedule to follow. That way your students know exactly when they need to be there, when they need to be ready to run their event. Now, with that said, before we stop for questions, there are a couple other things that we need to kind of pass along. One of them is that we do have some event modifications to be aware of right now. The first deals with our lab events. The national office is very concerned that we run this from an equity standpoint, meaning that all schools in our state have the exact same opportunities to compete and be successful. We know that the resources available in science labs vary across the state of Missouri. So for that reason, we will not be having any lab events where the students will actually do an actual wet lab. So things like forensics, science crime busters would fall under this category. What we'll be doing is the tests themselves are going to be written so that either the lab activity is presented as perhaps a short video where the students would watch this video of a test being run and then analyze it, or the test to be written in a way that they would explain the test that was run, they would explain the results of the test, and then the students would have to interpret and analyze those results. Another event that is going to require some modification are the build events. Once again, we're very concerned about an equity issue, and we are aware that some schools have better access to equipment than others. Some schools have the equipment they need to test a boom alarm. Some schools have the equipment they need to completely run a mission machine, others may not. So what our regional directors will be doing is they'll be contacting the teams in their region to inquire about their ability to run those build events on site. If we are looking at situations where the teams are running them on site, then we'll be asking you either to show us a video of your event running, or we'll ask you to live stream a test of your event, maybe over something like Zoom. There's a couple other programs that we're investigating that might work well. If we are running into situations where we have schools that are not going to be able to do the build events due to resources, testing equipment, then those build events are going to be run as a trial event. So your kids will still be able to medal in them. However, we aren't going to be counting those for team points. We just don't think that would be the fairest way to do things. A couple other things that we will be changing. One of them is experimental design. So to let you know, we're looking at two different ways to run this event. Way number one is that we will give you a list of materials well in advance of the event, maybe a week or two before. Then we'll ask you to assemble those items and have them ready for your participants. Now, I know that some people would say, well, that really takes away the spirit of the event because the kids know what the experience is going to be about. Well, look at it this way. Let's suppose that you got your list of materials and we said you need to have water, sugar, salt, soap, a meter of string, a couple bouncy balls, a piece of aluminum foil, and a lead weight. Well, have I just described a density, a solubility, or a pendulum experiment? Don't know. So there'll probably be some red herrings that they throw in there. So just make sure your kids really read the rules and realize they don't need to use everything. Now, option two is that we'll extend experimental out to 70 minutes. And the first 20 minutes is going to be the here's the list of materials you can use. Now go find them in your school. And then the remaining 50 minutes is going to be actually running the event. One other event that we're going to be changing is Write It, Do It. This is going to be run as Write It, CAD It. We have a couple of free online CAD websites available to us that we have some folks looking at. And the event will be run in a way where we'll give you some kind of an object, describe it, and then the partner in the other room is going to draw that on the CAD website. And we think that is going to be a really, really cool way to do this event. We will be giving you that online CAD website in advance. I know that if you just go to Google and type in like free online CAD, you can probably get some right now to practice. And maybe if you do that and you find a couple that are really cool ones, if you would even let us know, we'd love to hear some ideas on that. So I'm going to go ahead and stop for just a minute now, and I'd like to see if we have any questions at this point on the chat line. Let's see, is this for state and regionals? Yes, this is for state and regionals. Nationals has not determined how they're going to do things, and that is totally up in the air. But the latest from nationals, when I talked to them last week, was the least likely option for nationals at this point is an in-person tournament where we're going to get 5,000 folks in Arizona at one time. So I bet nationals could be a combination of satellite and mini as well. Woody uploading for school devices was an issue. That is the kind of information we need to know. So if we're seeing things that are not working out for us right now, then we know we need to make some changes. So when you get to regionals, we can run this thing as smoothly as possible. And I know there's going to be some hiccups, and we're going to tell you in advance, we're going to have some invitationals coming up. I know at least 1 or 2 statewide, and your regional directors are looking at these very, very carefully to try and make some determinations as to what's going to work best for our state and what types of software is going to work the best for us. Let's see, any others before we get back to our slides here? Okay, not seeing anything, so let's go ahead and cover some of the logistics. Okay. Just a second here. So here are some logistics that I need for you guys to have ready for you when we actually do the tournament. As of now, our most likely scenario is that regionals is going to run on a Saturday. We are also investigating the idea of running all regionals statewide on the same date. So we're working on that one even as we speak. We will be asking you to set aside most likely a 6-hour block on the designated Saturday in which you're going to be participating in the regional tournament. If we're having schools that are telling us that they cannot get building access on a Saturday, maybe that's because that's your, I guess, decontamination day, so to speak. Another option we have is to start up what we're going to call regional week. And we would run regionals every day after school for a couple hours over a 3 to 4 day period. And we would get all the events in that way. So might be a possibility. If you guys have any strong opinions either way on that, please contact either myself or your regional directors, because we definitely want to get feedback as to what options will work the best for you guys. Now, as for at your school for the tournaments, we're going to first of all recommend that all the coaches are going to set aside 3 classrooms or some type of controlled space for the competition. As coaches, you're going to need to ensure that all of your participants have internet access. Their computers, laptops, tablets, mini notes, you name it, are fully charged and ready to go. And that all your participants have access to any event-specific resources or notes that are spelled out in the event rules. And also keep in mind for this year, the guidelines for event materials and notes has been changed. So instead of saying that these resources are allowed per team, the resources are per person. So if the kids are going to an event that allows each team to bring in a 3-ring binder, change that to each person can bring in their own 3-ring binder. We want to do that to prevent sharing of resources. So you've got your 3 rooms set aside. Here's what's going to happen in each one of those 3 rooms. So room number 1, we're going to call that your homeroom. In your homeroom, any student that isn't actively taking a test should be waiting in that homeroom. That's all that's going to be going on in the first room. Room number 2 is going to be the designated testing room. The only students that should be in the testing room are going to be the kids that are actually physically participating in their event. And we're going to ask that the head coach is in this room at all times. They're going to be proctoring the team members in that room. Another thing we'll ask the coaches to do is to make sure that room is secured, to ensure that the only people in there are the ones that are actually participating in an event, and that once a student finishes with their event, that they leave the testing room and that they would report to their homeroom. The third room that you've set aside is going to be the designated build room. This could either be a large classroom, maybe it's your school gym, maybe it's a large hallway area. We are going to let the individual teams know how each region wants their build events to be tested. Some of the regional directors, when we had our last meeting, said they wanted this to be done by video. So you'd submit a video before the regional tournament of your event running. They want to see your students' best example. Other regional directors have said they want you to sign up for a specific time and run it, say, through a Zoom meeting, because they want to try and get it under actual conditions. Either way, it's a decision from the regional director, and they will let you know what they have in mind on that. So with that said, again, we're asking that you keep this room secured and that the only people in there are the ones that are actually participating in a build event. So we're really limiting access to our testing locations as much as possible. So with all this in mind, let's talk about how many staff members you will need for your team to make things run smoothly. In a perfect world, you would have 3 individuals that will be at this satellite tournament. The head coach, we're asking to stay in the testing room. They're going to be actively proctoring the tests. An assistant coach, a second coach, a volunteer, we're going to ask to staff the build room and just monitor that location. And then lastly, an additional coach, maybe a parent of a team member, something like that, is going to be monitoring the homeroom and just making sure that everything's going smoothly in there. Kids are maintaining social distancing and there aren't any issues in the homeroom. During the process of the satellite tournament, we do need you to follow COVID protocols. However, we're going to make sure that you're following your district COVID protocols. We're not going to be issuing anything from state on this one. So if your school district is requiring masks to be worn, masks are going to be worn. If your school district says 6 feet apart, you're going to keep your kids 6 feet apart. We know that each location in the state's a little bit different, and we're going to make sure that you do what you need to do in your area to keep your kids safe. If your school closes down, please contact either myself or your regional director. That way we will be able to make allowances for the closed schools. One of the possibilities is that we will have all of the schools that are closed down competing in their own region. So we won't be doing a geographic region, we'll be doing a competition type region. But regardless of how that works out, you will still have that opportunity to compete for an opportunity to go to the state tournament. So I'm going to open this up now to see if we have any questions. And let's go ahead and pop this back up here. So I have our chat open up. Is there anything that you guys would like to ask at this point? I know I've gone through a lot. I've gone through it kind of quickly, but I am completely ready to go. Fire away. It's question time. You know what? I don't talk too fast, Denise, so don't worry about it. I'm just waiting for someone to get on here and say long-time lurker, first-time caller. One other thing that's come up, I'll go ahead and mention that now, deals with teams that are going to be advancing to the state tournament. We had a very long discussion at our regional board of directors meeting, and we've decided that, at least for right now, our best option is to wait until we close registration in January, and then we're going to make a determination as to how many teams will be going to state, first place finishers, things like that. Just to give you an idea, if we ran regionals today, every single team that's registered to be going to state, because we've only got, I think, 32 middle school and 34, 35 high school teams. We know that's going to change, but we want as many teams to compete in state as possible. We also know that the 32 state team limit is more of a logistics issue than anything set in stone. There's no big granite marker in Fulton that says no more than 32 teams shall be here. So we're just going to wait and see how this plays out. Regardless of dates, hard to schedule the building. Wait until December. Please try to get this info out. Yes, we will. Right now, it's in the regional director's hands. And Denise, help me out. I believe you're Region 7, if I'm not mistaken. If you could just chat really quickly. Yes, okay. If you get on the website, Region 7 has really got that date set in stone. So they were really insistent that if we do all state regionals, we use their date, because they've already contacted a lot of folks. So if you need to schedule a school, probably do that. I mean, worst case scenario, we'll have 7 run at that date, and then the other schools can run at the same time. We're just more of a logistics with finding enough event directors at this point that can do things for us in a pandemic. Another thing to kind of mention dealing with awards, please understand that a lot of the locations we're doing regionals are closed down. Regions 3, Region 4, Region 6B are completely shut down. They do not have access to anything on a weekend. So a lot of this is going to be running from the regional directors' houses, which means that we can't guarantee that we're going to have the scoring done for you an hour after the last event runs. What we are working with is our supplier for the medals to actually have those shipped to your school after the tournament, so there's nothing to pick up. They'll come directly from our manufacturer. Let's see, also test will offer one at a time so you can have conflicts. That's entirely true. We're looking at some of the guidelines that the national office set forth, but I think most likely you're going to have a scenario where it would be like a traditional regional tournament. Anatomy runs these 2 blocks or these 3 blocks. Your kids sign up which one of those 2 or 3 blocks they want to run the event in. Our biggest issue is that if we only have 1 copy of the test and 4 or 5 regionals are taking it, we just want to make sure we have that level of test security, so we don't have a test that's going to be making it all through the state. I know that that would never happen, but that was the thinking from nationals when they gave that to us, but we are free to change that. So I've had quite a few coaches indicating that. So I think you're looking at multiple blocks for one event. Let's see, any others coming across from anyone? Let's see, at the meeting this morning, we had a question about, can schools share devices? So if I have the Boomlever testing platform and my neighboring school doesn't, can I ship that over to them? The answer from nationals is no. Due to the pandemic, no sharing of equipment at all between schools, no overnight stays for any schools, so that's definitely ruled out. Now, I know that Region 5 has said there might be a possibility that they could let the schools on campus just to run their build events. So in some places that might work out. Most likely though, the ones where we can't share equipment and teams don't have it, then you may be looking at a trial event. I would probably say things like ping pong parachute, where you have to get an air compressor and a launcher, might be the most likely to fall into that category. We also had some folks that talked to us about some software called SkySieve, which allows you to run a boom lever virtually. So the kids have designed the thing online, it would test it online, give them a result. I spoke to the guys that run that software. It is an absolute amazing program. I would love to have it in Missouri. However, They have a fairly steep licensing fee to get that software. Just to give you an idea, our state budget is a little bit lower than normal. We are down in Missouri about 120 teams from last year, and we have just enough teams registered to cover our fixed costs for things like medals, national fees. So I'm afraid that, additional purchases this year is just not going to be able to happen. Okay, just checking again for any additional comments on here. Looks like we're looking at about our last opportunity to share your amazing wisdom with all of us, if you guys have anything to share. Let's see. Well, I'm thinking I may have actually run this meeting and answered everyone's questions. Oh, nope, nope, nope. So we're not using the Boom Lever software. The answer to that question is no, we're not. We cannot afford it. In order for us to run it, let's see. We would have to come up with probably around $4,000. And at the rate we're going right now, we are not going to be anywhere near that for our budget. We simply don't have the money. We have too few teams that have registered this year, and I'm not going to assess a $50 COVID-19 charge to every team. That just wouldn't be fair to them. Hey, I wish you guys could do that. One of the things that we've always tried to do in Missouri is keep our costs as low as we can. A lot of other states are going $250, $300, $600 for their state registration fees. Just to give you an idea, we collect $145 per team. 60 of that goes straight to the national office, and the other 85 stays with us. It costs us for things like shipping, medals, ribbons, trophies, about $900 to run each region. So that gives you at 8 regions, $900, tells you about what our fixed costs are. And then anything after that is what we have to buy equipment. No one in the state office, no one in any regional directors, no one is getting any kind of pay or salary for this. Everything's totally volunteer. So, yeah. Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that. I wish that things were different this year. I really do. I'd love to have that software. I'm hoping that next year, when things get better, where numbers could go back up, and maybe we could run that as a trial event. And I think once we get that software purchased, just an amazing opportunity for us. We're also looking at some grants, and there's always a possibility that could come out, but right now everything's pretty much shut down. Oh, one other thing that I wanted to let all of you guys know is look for a couple of emails from your regional director and from the state office. Your regional directors are going to be giving you some questions about what build events you have the resources at your schools to run. Please make sure you respond to that. And from the state office, we have kind of an interesting little survey that's going out. Every so often, we'd like to check with their schools and see what their ability is to compete and their ability to travel. Some of you that have been around for a number of years might remember maybe 10 years ago or so, we had a 9th region in Missouri to try and open up Southern Missouri for some teams that weren't able to really travel. Well, we need to get that database updated. So what we've done is I've got a little survey that's coming out. It's going to have about 4 or 5 locations in the state on it. And we're just asking you, if an event was held at this location, would your district allow you to travel there? And keep in mind, this is all non-COVID travel. So I know right now you probably couldn't travel across the street, but assuming COVID is cured tomorrow, there's no more COVID to worry about, could you travel to Columbia for an invitational? Could you travel to Columbia for a state tournament? Could you go to Springfield for an invitational? Could you go to Springfield for a state tournament? Just that kind of thing. And don't read anything into that other than we're just updating our files here at state. And we just want to get an idea of, how far can teams travel? What's your geographic area your district lets you go to? Things like that. And it's mostly for the teams in the southern part of the state and some of the ones in the more rural areas that have a lot more restrictions due to budgeting than some of the schools in the major cities would. Let's see. I don't want to keep you all night on your fun Saturday night. If you're anything like me, it's going to be grading papers and looking telling kids start turning stuff in. So let's see if I got any other comments before we let you guys loose on the world. Enjoy at least one more day up here in northern Missouri till our cold front moves through. Looks like we don't. So with that said, I think we'll go ahead and call this a night. We're going to try and get a recording of this up on the website. We also have a YouTube channel that we just opened up. We'll have a new link on the website for the YouTube channel. So should you need anything in the meantime, please make sure that you give me a call. And if not, I want everyone to take it easy. Have a great weekend, and thank you so much for coming.